Chloe.
And this is a podcast designed for us just waffling
About
Formula One.
Formula 1, yeah.
And it's called Wednesday Waffle because every Wednesday we are sat in this room, or actually next door, and we thought it would be a good idea, instead of waffling to ourselves, to waffle to everyone.
Share
what's going on in the network and F1. So, where do we start?
Maybe the race.
Race last week. Last week we were in Azerbaijan.
Okay,
Baku. It was chaotic, to say the least.
5 people went out. The 2 Ferraris.
The 2 Ferraris, let's start off there.
Yeah.
Charles Leclerc, I think the shift drastically from Miami to Baku is something.
Yeah, I did not enjoy the Miami Grand Prix.
I'm going to be honest, the Miami Grand Prix sent me to sleep, especially that chicane.
It was a boring track and it was overrated.
No offense to anyone who enjoys having races in America. I'm not hating on any Americans or their tracks. I just think we've got too many races in America now, since we've got Las Vegas next year.
Yeah, and then Texas and all that jazz. It's just too much.
It is a lot.
We need some more in Britain.
Whereas Brands Hatch, which they hosted a Grand Prix, when was it? Years ago, but there was only 1 year of it.
Yeah, I mean obviously Silverstone, the OJ.
Which is in literally a couple days ago. Chloe and I are absolutely excited. So let's go back to what we were
anyway,
we're going off track. Let's talk about Baku. Should we talk about the Red Bulls first? Actually?
Yeah, let's talk about
Forget about what we're talking
about. Not my type.
My team. Chloe supports Mercedes, and I love Red Bull, so it's a bit of a love-hate relationship between Chloe.
It's very opinionated when we get going.
So it was a Red Bull 1-2. A very controversial Red Bull 1-2.
Yeah, with Sergio
and Max
leading and then switched when no fighting was allowed.
However, we can talk about McLaren and that, because Daniel and Lando wanting to catch Daniel on the last lap, being told by his engineer Will Joseph to hold position at the end. However, there was this argument that Daniel, prior to that, a few laps before Lando went into pit, Daniel was also told to hold position for Lando.
I found that on the radio that Lando got quite childish. I feel like he should have kept it till after the race in the meeting room where they could have discussed with team principals. It was a bit public.
I just don't understand the strategy behind. I don't understand the calls behind either strategy. I feel like instead of holding each other up, I feel like there shouldn't have even begun to be like Daniel hold position prior, because that's what started it really, of having to kind of give it back as Daniel done a 1-up for me earlier, so I have to do one for him back later. And
I think all the drama with Drive to Survive as well, like watching that, it was like always kind of backing up that argument of like, you know, they're 2 big characters and they're just clashing with each other.
However, for me, Drive to Survive is too dramatised. I think in the last 2 seasons, well, to begin with really, but it's been magnified really on the last 2 seasons of, you have these drivers who are given certain roles almost as Lando in the last Drive to Survive was the villain to Daniel.
I do agree to some extent that he was quite rude to Daniel with the whole like, I have no sympathy.
I don't feel sympathy for him.
But I don't think it was to an extent where it was like malicious bullying.
But I don't think it was even meant that way. I feel like it was twisted to be interpreted that way. But I don't feel like Lando, deep in his heart, had the intention. No.
Like even though they bicker, but there's sections of like you get shown on social media where they are playing basketball together.
Oh yeah, exactly, like their TikTok. I don't know if you saw it yesterday. Lando did a TikTok of playing with this tiny ball, and Daniel, you can see him in bright orange.
No, there's no like I said, maliciousness there. It's just them having fun. But anyway, back to Ferraris. We've gone off track again.
Nicholas Latifi.
Oh, he's just dropped it. It looked like he was on the damn.
Back to Red Bulls.
Red Bulls.
They had their 1-2, very controversial.
Switch between
I guess they're leading the championship, so they can be excited about that.
Unfortunately. However, I must add to that point with George Russell P3.
That's what we're going on. George Russell.
It absolutely made my day. Although it wasn't first, I still love the fact that he was on the podium. But
here's the thing. Here's where I'm concerned. Talking about the Mercedes in general, the porpoising.
oh, let's go.
I firmly believe no driver should be suffering 6 G's of force vertically on their spine. That is just ridiculous.
I mean, like what Daniel Ricciardo said, it's like when you get a basketball player and he's tucking that basketball really close. Imagine that at 200 miles an hour, 6G.
Yeah, that is porpoising. Just to explain to people who might not know, with the new cars and regulations, because they require so much downforce to now stick to the ground. I should have bought something like Martin. A Formula 1 car should be able to drive in a tunnel upside down and still stick to the ceiling. Because of the new regulations and the new skirts, they are required to almost plant themselves onto the ground. And because they are suctioning so much downforce, keeping it stuck, they end up releasing pounds of air.
Imagine it's the floor hitting on the floor. What was the floor hitting on?
It's the floor hitting on the tarmac, asphalt, whatever
of the track.
The track, as the air releases, causing the porpoising. And this force is all vertical towards the driver.
Yeah, and all of the drivers have suffered with it, but Mercedes seemed to be like in excruciating pain. I mean, Lewis Hamilton getting out of the car.
It was painful to watch.
He looked about 40 years older than he actually was. Like, it was, you know...
Mine's 37, but was coming out of the car like
he was coming out. It's not looking good.
It's not.
Like, if he sat on the side, he was rubbing his back. Even in the interviews, like in the media pen afterwards, he was constantly rubbing his back. Like, he couldn't stand upright. And I think it's just a lot on his body. I mean, there's, you know, people have said that he shouldn't do Montreal, but he's going to. That's next race.
Next race.
But I don't think he should. I think he needs a break, or they need to sort out the issue.
Here's my thing. Everyone is saying it's an easy fix, just lift up the cars. So lifting up the cars, technically, in a way, is said to fix it. Because if you lift it up, there's less downforce being generated, meaning less porpoising. However, with lifting up the floor, you then compromise performance. However, a lot of people have said that it should be discrepant, or it should be the team's problem to sort that out. Because, as you can see, the Ferrari, for example, very limited porpoising down high streets, straights. However,
they have the large ducts on the side to compensate for the airflow, which I don't think that's going well with the other cars, because it's being forced on the neck.
You can't take, for example, Ferrari's design of the floor and stick it onto the McLaren, for example. And expect it to work. Each car is engineered to...
They all have their flares, it's all different. The Mercedes is just not looking good at the moment.
I think the easiest solution, I know a few people might disagree with this, if a car is pulling, say, more than 4 Gs of porpoising down a track, that should be the team's, there should be a maximum of downforce on a driver's spine.
I think the FIA should get involved with that, because I mean, it's like when you go over 6G in a crash, you get taken to the medical centre. That's like, you get
they're doing this for what, 50 plus laps? This is dangerous.
That is an hour and 20 minutes of constant pounding on your spine. It's not good.
Not even this, we're starting to look at concussions, sports concussions. I read an article the other day about, NFL players, for example, because of their constant head contact, they constantly get looked at for that. But then when you're starting to pull 6 Gs of vertical force,
why is that not being looked at?
That needs to start to be looked at, because not only are you affecting their spine, you're now looking at potential concussions from that constant head bopping motion, and it's just becoming dangerous. I think the FIA definitely need to intervene and have a look at, is the way, do we tell all cars to lift up their right hands?
However, but then is that too much? Like, especially with the double header coming up, like maybe over the summer break.
But then you're saying, but teams like, for example, McLaren haven't had this issue of porpoising.
No,
so by telling them to increase their ride height, you're disadvantaging the teams that have managed to get it right.
And especially if they did do it over the summer break, like for Ferrari, for example, Charles, big contender, he could come back and plummet. Like it,
Of course,
it could change everything. Like you don't know, you might get someone like Pierre Gasly first.
Do you know what? I back that.
Anything can happen.
That's the thing. It's finding a solution that works. Of not having drivers suffer from that much porpoising and the effects of it, but not having teams who have managed to manufacture a car that can handle it suffer because of other teams' lack of finding that information. Next.
I think we should move on to Ferrari's engine and brake fails.
Kevin Magnussen, Zhou Guanyu Zhou, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, all Ferrari-powered engines.
All DNF.
Have all DNF'd.
I mean, the Ferraris they've been really strong.
Very strong.
But the last few races, I mean, Charles didn't finish in Barcelona, was it?
Didn't finish.
And obviously this one, and he had a large engine fail. I mean, the smoke that was coming out of the track was ridiculous.
The bottom half of the table, Ocon, Bottas, Albon, Tsunoda, Schumacher and Latifi.
None of them really thriving for me.
I'm shocked about Valtteri.
Yes,
he's really been doing well in that Alfa Romeo.
And all of a sudden, I think he's not slacking, but he's...
I think this was an odd performance. I don't think...
Oh yeah, I think Baku was an odd one. I mean, like, I was expecting, like, on my F1 play, I put Charles, Carlos, Max. I'm thinking, and then when George was on the podium, both Ferraris are out. I'm like, what on earth is going on?
My fantasy team last week was horrific. I've got both Charles, Carlos, Daniel,
The only problem with Fantasy F1, right? Fantasy F1, I always put my heart in it. I'm like, Lewis first, George, and then I get disappointed every week. It's
Think
not
about
good for
it,
me.
Charles Leclerc was my turbo driver.
Oh.
My team was in the mud, quite literally. We should make a fantasy league for
We
this.
should. That sounds like a plan. Since leaving Mercedes, I feel like people expected more from Bottas because he's got that experience. But I
think
don't know.
he's doing perfectly fine. I think he's really established himself as a team worker in that team. And
I think
he looks like he's enjoying.
I think he's doing okay. I think it's just the odd races. I mean, he's doing much better than his teammate, who's pretty much out every single race.
However, when you look at it, the times he has been out, it was due to not his fault. It's
that's
Ferrari
true.
power or
but once again, an engine. I mean, like,
that's
he's probably not used to that with Mercedes, but it's it is what it is.
It is what it is. Albon and Latifi.
Albon and Latifi are disappointing me because, George Russell being at Williams before, I do feel for them. Like, I think I personally went through the struggle that they went through last year, like with being at the bottom of the grid, and everyone was like, it's going to get better with this new system and everything's changing, and they're still close to the bottom.
For me, it's Alex Albon coming out of racing for a year and still beating Nicholas Latifi.
Yeah,
at what
that
point,
is a kick in the teeth for Nicholas Latifi.
What point do you call that enough? I understand that Williams have got new sponsors. They've openly admitted they have no need for a pay driver. So it's the argument: is Latifi a pay driver anymore? Is he not? Not going to get into that too much. There's rumours that Silverstone, Oscar Piastri has signed a contract for Williams.
Yes,
I don't know
I
if
have
you've
seen that, and I'm not going to lie, I'm rooting for him.
I am a massive Oscar Piastri fan. I am a fan of Oscar Piastri, so before I get too
I think
excited,
he deserves it because I thought he was going to take the Alfa Romeo seat when it all was going on.
I knew,
but then I was like, and then but I just want him in F1.
I am a massive fan of Oscar Piastri.
So excited because this new generation is coming up the leads. I
Look
mean,
at the
soon we'll have
talent
Arthur
we've got. More specifically, in Formula 2, you've got Felipe Drogovic, you've got Theo Pourchaire, you've got Liam Lawson, you've got Yuri Vips.
Oh my god, Vips, I need to get him in F1. But oh my god,
heartbreak for him in Baku though.
We're not going to that war. That was okay.
That was really.
But anyway, I just love this new generation of people that are coming up. But I do think that people keep leaving and coming back, which not to say it's unfair of Albon, but like you've had your chance. Like, I want Oscar in that seat.
I think we're both massive Oscar fans.
Oh yeah, as much as I love Albon and Latifi, it's like maybe it's time for a change.
I think the change in investor was one.
Yes, that was massive.
That's a good point for Williams. However, is this new sponsor or whoever took over Williams, even though they are filling Williams with money, is it?
Yeah, is it working? They're getting filled with money, but so are bigger teams, and they're doing much better. What are they doing
you
wrong?
You now need to look at. I'm not trying to criticise the staff at Williams.
Yeah, you need to look at the
more
mechanical.
experienced mechanics to come in.
Yeah, and the engineers. You need to
know.
look at that because, or you look at like old Ferrari mechanics. I mean that's happened. I believe it's Mercedes. They brought in a Ferrari, and it's just overall made their car that bit more engineered.
Look at last year where you had a lot of Mercedes going to Red Bull.
Yeah.
I know that was a massive thing of Mercedes staff being offered contracts at Red Bull, and a lot of Mercedes staff took it.
Anyway, we'll probably have to wrap it up there.
We've actually waffled.
We
so
have
much.
waffled for quite a long time.
That's the point of this podcast.
Yeah,
It's
it's the Wednesday waffle.
So tune in next week.
Yeah, next week. We've got Montreal this weekend.
A break, which is Goodwood, and then
And then
the week after that, Silverstone.